Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness, and because I'm going to put this on both channels, welcome to American Reversion 2. I'm Steve Smith. Well, I'm at the Mount Moriah Cemetery in Deadwood, South Dakota. Now, a few of you probably immediately got hip to the significance of that. And for the rest of you, what the significance is this is the graveside. Let me see if I can get him in there. I can't tell if he's in. The sun's in my eyes. I left my hat in the car. The grave site of James Butler Hickok. Most people know him as Wild Bill. That's his headstone right there, and it's not the original headstone, of course. The first one was wooden. I want to talk about a couple of lessons from Wild Bill here. I don't know when this one was erected. It's beautiful around here. Let me turn you around and let you see how pretty this place is. This is quite a ways up a hill. Hickok came to Deadwood, well, I was going to say late in his career. It was the last part of his career, wasn't it? And he was killed here in 1876 by a guy named Jack McCall. Hickok was, of course, an interesting character. Just like everybody else, he wasn't all good, he wasn't all bad. He was a mix of both. He came from Illinois. He was let me get him back in there. There we go. There he is. Came out west because it was exciting out here. He served as a scout for the Union Army and a spy for the Union Army. He was hooked up with some of the Jayhawkers, which I'm not fond of, in the Kansas-Missouri border wars there. He started his law enforcement, well, kind of started his law enforcement career in Monticello Township in Kansas, which later became Lenexa, Kansas, which is the next city over next to me. Actually, he used to live close by to where I live right now. He went out. He went and followed the excitement. He participated in the first. And I think I've mentioned this on another video sometime back. The first and perhaps the only, well, maybe not the only, in the first definitely what people consider as a gunfight, to where people go out in the middle of the street and and meet each other and draw down and shoot. Most gunfights weren't like that back then, nor are they today. Now, like you see in the beginning of Gunsmoke, and I'll meet you in the street at high noon and everything like that. He had been playing poker in Springfield, Missouri, and I've been to the place to where this happened. And he had lost all of his money to a guy by the name of Davis, Tuttis, something like that. It's been a while. I wrote about it in one of my books. And he lost all of his money. Well, he gave Tuttis, I think that was the guy's last name, his watch as security, because he didn't have enough money that time to pay. And he said, "Would you hold my watch until I can get you paid?" And so Tuttis took it. Well, Tuttis, and if I'm saying this wrong, I apologize. Tuttis. Well, he started showing the watch around town, which, of course, he was saying, "Look, I got Wild Bill's watch." And I don't know if he was calling himself Wild Bill by that time or not. I forget. Up in Nebraska and northern Kansas, they referred to him as Duck Bill, actually, because he had kind of a large nose and he had a protruding upper lip. And he didn't like that much. But anyway, so this guy started showing his watch around town. Says, "Look, I got Hickok's watch," because he couldn't afford to pay his gambling debt. And of course, that was Hickok went to him and said, "Man, that's disrespectful. You can't be doing that." And that brought him to the point to where they met in the town square of Springfield, Missouri. And Tuttis shot at him and missed. And they say that Hickok hit him in the heart from 75 yards off. Now, with the guns of those days, that's a pretty good shot. And You know, I made one. Interestingly, one of the interesting things, Hickok wore his gun stuffed in a sash. He didn't wear holsters for the most part. There's pictures of him with wearing holsters, but back then, for the most part, he just wore a sash, and he stuck his guns down in the sash. I've talked about how many times I do not wear a holster, and there's other ways to carry guns than all these slicked out tactical holsters. Well, he went off and did some other things. He was, a lot of people know of him as the Marshal of Abilene, Kansas, and mistakenly think that he's the one that cleaned it up. He wasn't the one that cleaned it up. The one who cleaned it up was a guy by the name of Tom Smith, Tom Bear River Smith, and he was from New York. I'm going to do another story on him because there's a lesson. I'll probably stop by his gravesite in Abilene on the way back. There's a great lesson from Tom Smith. But Smith is the one who, and I have no idea, I don't claim any relation. He kind of looks like us, but but who knows? I don't think he had any kids, so if there was any relation, it's got to be off a cousin or something. Tom Smith is the one. He went up to Bear River City, Wyoming, and kind of cleaned up that town until there were union problems and nobody could settle it down. And so they said they heard about him in Abilene, and Abilene needed the law because Abilene was wide open and wild, and so they sent for him. He went down. He was the Marshal of Abilene until he was killed by a couple of guys who, after they shot him, cut his head off with an axe. I'll save that lesson for the lesson with Tom Smith. Back to Bill, he came in and they hired him to be Marshal of Abilene, and he did all right for a while, and then there was a problem. I forget what it was. I didn't go into detail in my books about it. You can read all about this anyway. And he was dealing with some people, and he had a deputy coming to help, and the deputy was running towards him. There's another lesson about Tom Smith. His deputy vamoosed and didn't back him up. But Hickok's deputy was running towards him in the dark. Hickok thought it was one of the guys that he was in a gunfight with and shot the deputy, killed him. So that's because he didn't have his surefire nightlight, right? Beware of your target and what's beyond it, all sorts of things there, right? Do I still have Hickok? Yeah, there he is. So that haunted him for the rest of his life, and he kind of lost his reputation about that. Bounced around a little bit more, ended up in Deadwood right here, and he was gambling. And one night, and where he was killed, the place is right down on Main Street down here. He was gambling, and he was gambling with a guy by the name of McCall, Jack McCall, and a bunch of other people, but McCall is the one who killed him the next day, so that's why it's important. So McCall ran out of money, and he was getting drunk, of course, and they say that Hickok offered to give him money for breakfast or a meal or something like that, and suggested he go get some sleep, before he came back and tried to, gamble some more. From all things that you hear, Hickok was in many ways a gentleman. And so the guy, kind of took that as an affront. And I'm going to move over here so I don't get people. I want to get them in here. So the guy kind of took that as an affront, but he left. And the next night, Hickok went in, and there was a poker game going on. And a seat came open, but it was with his back to the room, and he had pretty much a rule, like so many of us in law enforcement, we don't sit with our back to the room. He always preferred a corner, as do I and many people, because it pretty much covers everything. But there was a guy sitting in the corner, and I forget his name, and Hickok asked him, "Do you mind me sitting there?" And the guy said, "No, yes, I do mind you. I'm not moving." So Hickok, because he wanted to play poker that night, he went ahead and sat with his back to the room. Well, McCall comes in, and still hot over losing his money, and there's Hickok with his back to the room, and McCall shoots him in the back of the head. One shot. 45 from what I hear, which is why I suggest 45. And then a guy who probably knows just gave me a thumbs up. And that was the end of Bill. They got McCall and they strung him up for it. But you know, what lessons we can get a lot of lessons. I won't turn this into a big lesson. I think some of you just might like to watch this and see it if you haven't had a chance to get up here. Couple of the killings, one where he had to kill somebody and one where he got killed, came out of gambling, right? Now, I have gambled in my life. I used to run poker games. I don't think I've ever told you all that, but I used to run poker games, did quite well. Were they legal poker games, Steve? Well, I'm not going to answer that. But you know, you find that if you go to places where people are doing the things that can make them upset, you know, bad things can happen. I think I've told you, a buddy of mine, Jim Harrison, for those of you who may know, I doubt many of you, I know probably a couple of you do know or did know Jim. Some of you may have heard of him. He was just a legend in the martial arts. But he liked to tell people when he'd give seminars, he'd say, you know, I've had my nose broken in 3 places and I learned to stay out of those places. So good lesson is watch where you are. Another lesson, don't bet more than you can afford to lose. They got a tour bus down there telling people about it. And another lesson, oh yeah, they're talking, Calamity Jane's back there too, by the way, and she was kind of Hickok's paramour, and when she died, her request was bury me next to Wild Bill. So anyway, what were my lessons? Lessons was don't bet more than you can afford to lose. Don't sit with your back to the door. That is, you know, being aware of your surroundings, right? You know, all of these things that people come up with nowadays that say so tactical, it was just a way of life for people, and is a way of life for people now, who make their living dealing with violence and around guns and things like that. Most of you will probably hopefully, never need to know that stuff, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. And so that's Bill, and it's good to be here, and it's good. That's all right, ma'am. I'm not filming that way. Okay. They'd probably rather see you, but
no, I got it.
But they're going to have to look at me for another minute. So anyway, just thought I'd bring you all up here. I'm still on my trip of researching for the new book, because I'm going to include this in the new book. And we're headed from here. We're headed up to Sturgis, then we're headed across Wyoming to get over to the Tetons, and it's just pretty around here, and Yellowstone. So anyway, hope you all are having a good day. Hope that some of you enjoyed that little talk and seeing Wild Bill's grave. And you all have a good day. Remember, like I always say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Bill didn't prepare well that day when he sat with his back to the door. And that America needs a reversion. It needs us all to be a part of it. You know, there's some tough people built this country, and some weak people have destroyed it, and it's going to take some tough people to build it back up. So you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.